IFA Galaxy for this wonderful opportunity. And today I am going to talk about 10x mutual funds, its data and application. So today I am going to present its book, basically a back to basics. It's nothing a revolutionary concept or not a new one. It's more like back to basics for MFDs. So I believe there are 4 categories of mutual fund investors. So new, intermediate, experienced, and veteran. So this is basically based on the number of years an investor spent in the market and number of market cycles he has seen. And for this presentation, I'm going to focus just on the new investors. That is basically 0 to 7 years. So every investor enters the market mutual fund with the expectation that he wants to have a 12% returns, and that 12% should be year on year. Like 12% should be same in all the years, right? But reality, he gets the 12%, but it will be with a lot of volatility, right? So usually what happens when one good year is followed by another bad year, he gets out of the market and says that this is not for me. Let me go back to the FD. So my question is, why most retail investors leave the market in 3 to 5 years? So the most common answer is retail hates uncertainty. They don't want to deal with uncertainty in the mutual fund asset class, or else they say that they don't have the behavioral coaching to stay for the long term. But I believe both are wrong, especially for the new segment. So let me make a provocative statement. I believe retail investors are perfectly okay with uncertainty in an asset class. So how many of you agree with that? Retail investors are perfectly okay with uncertainty associated with asset class. It is just that they are not okay with mutual fund, but they are okay with uncertainty in other asset class. So in general, we have 4 different asset class, like basically equity is there, debt is there, real estate is there, and gold is there. So which one is subject to market risk? All of them? So that's the right answer. Actually, all of them are subject to market risk. But most people will say equity, mutual funds is subject to market risk. Remaining things are always goes up, and up. So every asset valuation is basically a function of number of units and cost per unit. But let's go to a retail investor and ask him what is his goal? What is his goal with gold? What is his goal with mutual fund or else with real estate? He always says, I want to accumulate 200 grams of gold. I want to accumulate 1,500 square feet of land. But he will say that I want to accumulate 50 lakhs of mutual fund. So can you see the difference? So for the gold and real estate, he will focus on only units. He won't focus on the valuation. But when it comes to mutual fund, he will always focus on the valuation. He never cares about NAV, never cares about number of units. So actually, this is a chart of the gold fund. So just as a representative of the gold as an asset class. So just look at this. Between July 2012 to July 2019. So for 7 years, it gave 0% returns. Basically flat, no returns at all for 7 years. And also it had 3 bouts of minus 15 to minus 20%. Yet no investor sold the gold, and yet more investors bought the gold actually in this dip. The reason is they are just focused on the grams. So any middle class people, they want to have 200 grams of gold, 500 grams of gold, or 1,000 grams of gold. So they are so focused on the grams, that is a unit, they don't care about the valuation. So what do I propose? So how to retain a new retail investor? I believe that we need to have a reference data. So for gold, every household, they have a reference data, like it always goes up in the long term. Even the gold goes through its volatility, but every household believes that it goes up in the long term. So I believe that we need to have more and more data which shows that mutual funds goes up in the long term. So how many mutual funds have crossed 1,000 NAV? Anyone know? how many mutual funds crossed NAV of 1000? 4? How many? 4 or 5? So basically 11 mutual funds have crossed 1000 NAV. All of them launched at 10 and it went on to 1000 NAV. All these 11, I call them as a super 11. So basically it went up to 100x. But when I showed this data to a client, he said, sir, all of them are launched in 93, 94, 98. Obviously it might have gone through more due to the growth in the last 30 years. Do you have any relevant data in the recent times? So that's when I went for a 10x. That is a growth from 10 NAV to 100 NAV. So do you know how many mutual funds have grown from 10 NAV to 100 NAV? That is 10 times. So every mutual funds launched at 10 NAV. So how many mutual funds crossed 100 NAV? So basically 140 mutual funds as of today crossed the 100 NAV, and on an average, they have reached the 10x in 14 to 15 years. Just imagine, on an average, these 140 mutual funds, they have launched in various times like 98, 2002, 2005, even 2010 were launched. Still, in 14 to 15 years, they reached 10x, that is 100 NAV. So here I ignore these extremes, like there are some mutual funds which have crossed 100 NAV in 8 years and less. And also there are some mutual funds which have taken 20 and more years. So let's ignore these extremes. These are not going to be repeatable. So let's focus on the middle. So basically the 80% of the funds have crossed the 10 times in 8 to 16 years or 8 to 20 years. So just a small fun fact. Does anybody know a mutual fund which have crossed 10x in 18 months? So we have a mutual fund which was launched in September 98 and it reached in 10x in February 2000. Yeah, it's basically a Franklin India tech fund. So this is just for a fun fact. It's not going to be, it's not a repeatable. It's due to internet bubble in 2000. So I just have a list of funds which have reached 100 NAV in 8 to 12 years. And this is between 12 to 16 years. And this is between 16 to 20 years. So why is this important? Why should we care about this? So I believe every retail investor should know that the bank which he interacts with, either public sector bank or private sector bank, where he interacts with, has a mutual fund unit which have gone 10x. And he should also know the Indian brand or the international brand which he interacts with daily has a mutual fund unit which has grown 10x in 15 to 20 years. So next thing is, okay, we are giving a reference data, that's fine. But will the investor stay with us? I believe that we need to give a fixed target like mutual fund units in terms of the mutual fund units. So as I told before, the gold valuation is basically a function of number of grams into cost per gram. Does anybody have used JAR app? JAR, J-A-R. So it's basically a app, fintech app to buy a digital gold. So just notice the thing they are displaying. So when an investor opens an app, he sees only the number of grams he is holding. 3 grams, 10 grams, 20 grams, or 200 grams. That's the only thing he is noticing. He doesn't see the valuation of the gold. But when you look at the mutual funds, the first thing he notices is the valuation. Like 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, and it went 10,000 or 20,000 yesterday or day before yesterday. That's the only thing he notices. So what I'm trying to say is, like, not even the traditional investors, even the new age fintech apps are focusing on the units rather than the valuation. So I personally believe the fund NAV is a work of AMCs. They have fund manager, they have analyst, they have a team of CIO, everything. They will take care of the growth from 10 to 100 and beyond. As a MFD, our focus should be to accumulate more and more units, to make the client to accumulate more and more units. See, the same fund, which has grown 10x from 30 to 300 NAV in 20 years, if an investor holds 3,000 units, he will have only 9 lakhs worth of fund. But if the client has 10,000 units, he will have 30 lakhs worth of funds. So the simple number of units makes a big difference. So simply having the data and the target won't help. We need to have a plan for this and also need a guidance of the MFD. So how to calculate the mutual funds needed is basically target amount divided by the future NAV. And how to calculate the future NAV, we know the current NAV. Based on the returns assumption, we can calculate the future NAV. So once you have the target amount and future NAV, we can have the mutual funds needed. So this is an example for the education. So let's say an investor want to have 40 lakhs in 10 years. And we select 4 different funds, and each fund should have 10 lakhs each. And the current NAV we have, and based on the returns assumption, we have the future NAV. So from this, we can calculate the units needed. So we are in Chennai, so of course, we can't go without talking about Dhoni. So I like this quote very much. The process is more important than the result. And if you take care of the process, the results will follow. So in each and every meeting, we need to drive through the point to the client that focus on the units. That's the only thing we need. So if he is just starting, accumulate via regular SIP. If he got a salary hike, accumulate via step-up SIP. If he got a bonus, one-time lump sum. If the market went down, just focus on the strategic lump sum. And if the market is overvalued, just take some decisive decision so that you can accumulate more later. So for everything, just focus on the units. So all the things which I have told is only for the new set of investors. Once they have crossed that hump, once they experienced one market cycle, then you can go with the financial planning, behavioral coaching. Because see, the one difference I feel is, for an investor with 0% allocation, no amount of behavioral coaching is going to help. Okay, that's my personal belief. If he has crossed the 7 years and if his net worth is 10%, 12%, at that time, definitely he needs a behavioral coaching, because by the time he will have a little confidence. And that little confidence is very, very dangerous. And he will do all kind of hyperactivity stuff. At the time, the role of the MFD is to do behavioral coaching and having a financial plan. And after 12 to 15 years, he has to withdraw some funds. We need to plan for that. And then legacy planning. So I just want to finish with this quote from Swami Vivekananda. So as he told, just take up one idea, make that one idea your life, think of it, dream of it, and live on that idea. Let the brain, muscles, nerves, and every part of your body be full of that idea. And just leave everything else. So that's a way to success. Please focus on the mutual fund units. That's my humble request. Thank you.